on. The administration's 2026 budget passback plan, currently under consideration, eliminates NOAA's Oceanic and Atmospheric Research or Office. It's 10 research laboratories, 16 affiliated cooperative institutes. It moves the few remaining research efforts to different departments in NOAA. So if enacted, the passback would close, shut down all of NOAA's weather, climate, and ocean laboratories and cooperative institutes. Just 2 days ago, 300 National Weather Service employees took the government's buyout plan. Now, the American Meteorological Society, or AMS, has come out strongly against these cuts with warnings of serious consequences to public safety. So with us now to tell us more is a friend of mine, Alan Seals, a former TV meteorologist just like me, who is now president-elect of the AMS and a fellow in that organization, one of the nicest and smartest guys I know. Alan, welcome to Hello Houston.
Oh, thank you very much. Happy to be here.
Well,
Hi, Alan.
I think Alan advanced better than you did, Frank. You ended up with us.
Well, Alan is a lot smarter than I am. Trust me on that. Okay. First of all, Alan, what kind of shutdowns are we talking here? How many departments of meteorologists across the nation? What's going to happen here?
Yeah, so to take it from the start, NOAA is sort of the parent organization of the National Weather Service. And NOAA, overall, it's really fewer than 15,000 people. And the National Weather Service, of course, is way lower than that. We think of NOAA as just the Weather Service.
And I would point out,
the Weather Service is
I want to point out real quick that they're under the Department of Commerce.
Correct. I'm sorry. Yes. And for a good reason. And that's because weather controls commerce both directly in terms of shipping, aviation, transportation. Weather controls agriculture. Everything we do on Earth is based on weather. So given that, already what we've seen, as you mentioned, the National Weather Service has had cuts, it has had freezes, it has had, whether you want to call them layoffs or early retirements. So already the people who are basically the boots on the ground to serve Houston and Texas with good weather information, the numbers are shrinking. Now back that up to NOAA. NOAA is the support agency which provides the research for the Doppler radar network, for the satellites. It provides the modeling data, which allows the local weather service forecasters to create their weather forecasts. What we're hearing is NOAA's budget being cut down, the research, a lot of it being cut, but a lot of it also being redistributed. So the first thing is, it's a lot of mystery. Nobody knows how this is going to play out, but I use the analogy. If you're a sports team owner, you have a new franchise. If you go in and you cut your team support by 50%, 30%. If you stop researching your opponents, if you stop studying your craft and your sport, there's no way in the future you're going to be better. Yes, you may get through this season okay, but in the long term, what NOAA is doing has potential dramatic negative impacts on how the National Weather Service functions, on literally public safety.
Now, Alan, I have a quick question about how much of it is actually just, instead of looking at it from a budget perspective, AI and technology is getting better. And so people are looking at ways to be more efficient, which also helps them in the long run with their bottom line, which is their budget.
Right. Yeah, that would be awesome. AI to the average person seems like a miracle, but AI is trained on human study. It's trained on climate information. It's trained on the past. And it's not perfect. And even when AI does things really well, which right now with weather forecasting, it is not consistently good, even though you might see a few articles here and there that it nailed one storm, but it's not good enough to replace the human beings. Even as we approach that point, you still need human beings to train it, to guide it, and also to train people on how to interpret it. And we know that's one of the biggest deals with weather and climate information is making it make sense to the public.
We're talking to Alan Seals, who is the president of the AMS now, former TV meteorologist. Alan, a lot of people, and please speak to this, a lot of people don't realize that wherever they get their weather, no matter what app they use, no matter what AccuWeather, Weather Channel, Climate Center, whoever they like, no matter what TV meteorologist, it all comes from the National Weather Service.
That's right. Your tax dollars support what I think is the best weather infrastructure in the world, literally. And I don't just say that because we live here, but we've got an organization that is motivated by purpose. That's NOAA versus a private company, which is motivated by profit. The purpose of NOAA is to protect life and property and to make all of us healthier, wiser, smarter, live longer, maybe even better looking, but that's a different story.
That's
But
TV.
it's the satellite and the radar network that is the foundation for all computer models. And if you take the private industry, which is great, we need that. NOAA supports private industry. It is an economic engine that creates jobs. And those industries also help to disseminate weather information, which truly is for everybody, for all entities and all individuals.
You know, a lot of people don't realize the scope of the National Weather Service and NOAA, from wildfire forecasting to they used to do, one guy even called it pirate forecasting, because they would forecast the waves and the wind in the Indian Ocean and let people know this is bad weather for pirates out there or good weather for pirates, which is extreme. But you know, from marine to wildfires to, earthquakes, I mean, they do it all.
Yeah, chemical spills. Unfortunately, Houston's no stranger to petrochemical issues.
Right.
And when you get something in the air that you don't want there, NOAA is there on the spot, sampling, measuring, also predicting using all the data and all the research. And that's where the research comes into play. Not anybody, but a good weather forecaster, a good weather forecaster can make a forecast. But if over time you're not improving, there's a problem. And the threat to NOAA right now is that there will not be improvement because a lot of the funding is being removed. It's also being shifted. So I'm optimistic that we won't lose all of it. But think about this upcoming hurricane season. One of the National Hurricane Center's pats on the back, which they deserve, is the hurricane forecast cone that shows where the center of the storm is likely to be. It'll be about 3 to 5% narrower than it was last year. And if you go back 20 years, that cone 5 days out is now half the width that it was. So just think about a 3 to 5% improvement every year. Right now in your 401k, that would be awesome. Other years, it wouldn't be so great. But when you take away the research, the National Weather Service, the National Hurricane Center, they all lose the ability to improve. And we need improvement if for no other reason than our population is growing. Our infrastructure is aging, and we are way more weather sensitive than ever.
Well, to your point, you and I both remember when all we did was a 3-day forecast and rarely got that right. And then that expanded to a 5-day forecast. I remember doing this for the first 7-day forecast in Houston. And then we went to a 10-day forecast, and I was the first to do it in Houston simply because the internet was doing it. I'm like, if people can get a 10-day forecast off the internet, then I'm going to give it to them on television. So that's an example of how the cone's gotten smaller, the forecasts have gotten, and they're actually pretty good. We may not get the 10-day exactly, but it's about a 50% accuracy rate.
It's
7 days
amazing.
7 days like 80%.
Go ahead.
No, a 7 days gotten to where it's 80% accurate.
Yeah, people take it for granted. No matter how more accurate the forecast is, everyone expects it to be more accurate because we live in the digital world, but weather is analog, it's not digital. But now on your smartphone, you have weather forecast models that literally update every hour. And of course, though, that's based on NOAA data, mostly on NOAA data. So it is a huge industry. And don't forget the ocean. That's one of the words within NOAA, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. 2/3 of the Earth is covered by water. We have to understand that. And one of the things that's sort of, I guess, hidden in the budget proposal is the state of Texas has a half dozen weather stations that are considered climate reference stations. In other words, they have combined easily 20 years each of weather history. It's not just temperature, pressure, humidity, and wind. It's also soil temperature. It's also measuring the sun. So these are things that go into agriculture. They go into designing communities. But the budget proposal basically says, get rid of those. We are not going to talk about climate because of the mistaken impression that climate is somehow a bad word. Climate is weather history, and we all have to know our history.
Yeah,
We're going to continue talking about climate and weather and also budget cuts with Alan Sayles. He is the president-elect of the American Meteorological Society. If you have questions or concerns or just want to join the conversation, give us a call, 713-440-8870. You can also text us at 713-440-8870.
You know, to Alan's point, climate is what you expect, weather is what you get.
Well, and also you touched on this a little bit, but NOAA's annual budget actually represents 0.09% of the $6.75 trillion. So NOAA's when you're looking at it from a budget perspective, is about $6.6 billion. That's what it costs, which is not much in the grand scheme of things. Why do you think that they want to cut then this? Why?
And to that
I
point,
have no idea.
Yeah, to that point, Alan.
No, really. Well,
do you think they're trying to privatize it?
It's such a small, when we're looking at it from a fiscal perspective, it's such a small percentage.
Right, and the benefit of the
it
money
is
spent is so incredible.
So I'm curious, Alan, from your perspective, why do you think that this would be something on the chopping block?
I'll speak as a citizen and not as a meteorologist. Again, I have no idea. When you look at some of the language that's come out of so many of the statements from the White House, the language in the passback, the budget proposal says maximize efficiency. It says save money. It does not say improve our science capability. So it's putting the money over the science, which is very short-sighted. You can go to a doctor, and while you want to save money, you don't just immediately go to the lowest priced doctor. You do your background check. You want to research that person's abilities, their track record, and then you make your decision. But everything that seems to be coming out of the White House is all about dollars, not about impact to people's lives. And you mentioned that budget. Look at Hurricane Helene. Look at Milton. Look at Harvey. Look at the tens of billions of dollars of losses and misery from one storm. And you compare that to NOAA's budget, it doesn't make sense.
I'm curious, if you were to look ahead 5 years, you can put on whichever hat you want right now. Look ahead 5 years. If these cuts go through and this is gone, where are we? How are we doing our jobs here?
Okay. Yeah, not pretty. The National Weather Service, dedicated employees. In the short term, I don't think the general public is going to see a big difference in the weather forecasting. But 5 years from now, if these cuts go through, in the best case, your forecasting improves a little bit as opposed to improving a lot, which makes us more vulnerable. As an organization, and I've seen this as a broadcast meteorologist, when your funds are cut, when your workload increases, when your coworkers disappear, the environment is not conducive to productivity and happiness. So even though you're dedicated to your job, you're going to struggle to keep up with all the tasks that are involved. And of course, the big task is severe weather. It's hazardous weather. But you start missing out on community interaction, helping the public understand weather and climate. More importantly, for me as an educator, is the National Weather Service also generates interest in the science of meteorology. So you lose the pipeline of future meteorologists because the current ones are working so hard, they're overloaded, they're getting burned out. It doesn't show a pretty picture for the future of meteorology within the Weather Service and within NOAA.
You know, one of the most common questions I think you and I get asked, Alan, is why is the European model so much better than the American model?
I always ask you that.
I know. You
Ernie
already ask me
often
that all the
asks
time. I don't necessarily, and as you know, and I know, it varies storm to storm. In fact, the head of the European model will tell you they actually use data from the American model within the scope of the European model. But the bottom line to your point is, if we're ever going to be on a scale of competing with the European model, we have to have money. It's all about computers and data, and it takes money to collect the data, and it takes money to build the computers, right?
Yeah, and I think one of the misconceptions, and maybe this goes back to the question about, well, why NOAA? And that may be that NOAA, like many government agencies, does its job. They do it well. They don't brag about it. They don't promote it as much as maybe they should. So the average person may not know what they're going to miss because they don't know what NOAA does. But think of the concept of someone within your city says, hey, we need to cut the fire department because every time I drive by, they're just sitting there. They're not doing anything. Very few people would vote to cut your fire department because people understand that on the days when they're not physically fighting a fire, they are training, they are learning, they are planning ahead, and they are gearing up for when that disaster occurs. So even though it may on the outside, on a glance, look like, oh, they don't do that much, they're doing a lot. And we need them when we really need them. We do really need them.
We're talking with Alan Seals, who is with the American Meteorological Society. Our phone number here is 713-440-8870. Sylvia is on the line from Montrose and has a question for Alan. Sylvia, what's on your mind?
Hi, thank you so much, Alan, for talking with us. My name is Sylvia D. I'm a climate scientist at Rice University. And my question is, what can we do as climate scientists to speak out and help solve this problem? I hear you about how dark things are getting out there, and I want to know how I can help.
Yeah, I struggle with that because, as we talked earlier, we're fighting politics, economics, and then science is right there in the middle of the two of those. It is where I as a human being, will raise my voice, and I have done so to my representatives. That's the start, is you have to speak out as an individual. It's difficult for those of us, or those of you who are still working, who are still employed, because there is a potential risk to your job security. But speak up as you can, encourage your family and friends to do the same. And now that social media, one of the positives of social media is you can put things out there that are useful. People will fight, they'll argue, they'll debate, but you still have to speak facts, you still have to speak truth. And I guess most of all, stay hopeful, just stay hopeful.
Thanks for that call, Sylvia, and that's a great answer, Alan. And we did receive a text from Robert. Our company bought a ship from NOAA. I was impressed. Very good condition and 20 years of captain's logs meticulously kept. This would be at least 4 different captains. Well done, NOAA.
They do great work. There's no question. Yeah. And, researchers, on the face of it, sounds like guys in white lab coats doing really boring stuff. But they are a lot of college students, a lot of PhDs, a lot of master's degrees, a lot of A&M students have one of the best meteorology programs in the country, Texas A&M. So these are people who are really smart, and we need them, just like Alan. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Alan.
Yeah.